right, so welcome back to another episode of the What's Your Motive podcast. Today I have an amazing guest here with me today. We've been hit or miss a little bit, but we're finally here, and that's great. And it's the perfect timing. It's the perfect timing. And she does a lot of wonderful things. She's a registered yoga instructor since I think 2015.
Yeah.
And trauma-informed and prenatal certifications. She used to be a corporate marketer.
Yeah.
Now she's an entrepreneur. She's a co-creator of Love MKE.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. She's a mom and just a wonderful vibe. Beautiful inside and out. And we met this summer at a friend of ours book kind of like release and showing and things like that. So, but we'll get into that. Please welcome Kristen Freeman Woyan.
Yes, Woyan.
To the What's Your Motive podcast.
Now everyone knows how to say
it.
There
you go. There you go. How you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm really well today. It's so good to see you again. It's been, I guess that was the end of September, right? So
yeah, it was still the summer.
Yeah.
It was still nice and warm outside. That's for sure.
It was beautiful. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm glad you're here. So happy to be able to talk to you too, because I know you've been involved a lot in the community and things like that. But before we get into some of those things, let us know a little bit about you. Who is Kristen?
Wow. Well, you covered a lot of the bases, right?
Okay.
But first and foremost, I'm a mom. I'm a community activist and a philanthropist. You already mentioned I'm a yoga instructor. That's a really big part of my life. And I've been doing that since 2015, as you mentioned. I want to give a shout out before we even continue the conversation to my teacher. Her name is Meg Galarza. She's another amazing leader in the community. And she's the owner of Yoga One Studio, where I teach. And I am a student of life is, I guess, a really, the best way to describe me. So I'm someone who cares deeply about others. I care deeply about well-being. And I care deeply about helping people in whatever way that I can. And so that's how I like to move through the world. But it's been a journey to get there as we all go through.
Absolutely. And I think I was reading on your About page that you are a community champion and a mental and what's the other one? And a mental health advocate. Yeah. And I think that was huge, especially given the time and day of now, and lots of things have changed.
Oh my goodness.
And I think we're starting to even pay attention to it a lot more in kids now too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is super, super important.
It is. It's, one thing that my journey to caring really deeply about mental health and mental health equity, right? Which is really maybe an overused term, but making sure that everybody has access to tools. And tools can look different for everyone too, but has access to tools that help people connect to themselves. It's started for me very viscerally when I actually over COVID, when I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And
didn't know.
So there's a really strong connection between, it was very sudden, and it was really hard to get in to see somebody because there was, telehealth wasn't a thing yet, right? So it was like right at the onset of COVID, and I felt really sick, but everywhere was closed. Long, short story long is in the way that I tell stories, but I found out that I had Lyme disease. And there's a very strong correlation between Lyme disease and mental health symptoms. And so that was kind of the beginning of one facet, right? Of course, COVID in and of itself has impacted everybody's mental health. And that's really when I started to dig deeply into understanding tools that I could incorporate into my own life and into the lives of my kids. Maybe in a different way, because I had already been practicing yoga and I had played around with meditation, but in a way that was more, part of my routine, right?
Gotcha.
And now I'm really just passionate about partnering with organizations like NAMI, like some nonprofits that I work with and some other organizations that I work with who are there as support resources for people that might not even know where to start.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm being, just for you saying like there's a correlation between Lyme disease and like the mental health aspect. I just wondering how many other conditions are, linked to our mental health, and especially like our gut and things like that. Because I knew you do somatic movements and things like that. So we have all these different diseases coming up, and it's just crazy, how you are diagnosed with that during such a uncertain time. And like you said, you had no access to it, like a doctor, and telehealth wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm assuming you did like some research on your own, and you reached out to different people.
Well, so it was actually, I'm going to say thank you, Melissa. You know who you are, but it was quite serendipitous actually that the Lyme disease. I was doing a lot of research. I was doing a lot of doom scrolling, WebMD, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
And then I had a friend who just said, maybe you should have them do another blood panel and put Lyme disease on it because, and that's really how I uncovered it. And then I started doing a lot of research about the connection between those things and the connection between the bacteria that's carried by ticks when Lyme disease is uncovered, and to the point that you just made before, the mind-body connection through your gut, through the vagus nerve.
Yes.
And that's also very closely related to trauma, right? So some of the tools that I started using then and that now I'm really deeply, involved in incorporating as part of my daily life, but also sharing with others are really just about like shutting down the fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses so your parasympathetic nervous system can relax. That really, really impacts your gut health. And gut health is very closely related to inflammation, which is something that is part of chronic Lyme disease. So it's all connected. And I've made a complete recovery, of course, but that's really how that started for me.
That's beautiful.
And then of course it weaved its way into the fabric of my life, and I've been personally impacted by, family members and friends who have died by suicide, and have had a lot of stories since that have really brought mental health into the forefront of things that I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can. Of course, we can all do more, right? But that I'm doing everything that I can to help make sure that people know that there's always someone there.
And there's always someone there.
Yeah.
And you made it a lifestyle, and you're also promoting that lifestyle for other people.
Yeah.
You're really trying to support them in that. And I can hear it in your voice.
Oh,
I think
thank
that's
you.
wonderful, because even something that I was thinking about, I think you mentioned on one of your posts one time, you said starting out in terms of like mental health and things like that, one of the things you can do for other people is check in on them.
Absolutely.
And so when I read that, I thought about that, and I was like, I actually have one of my buddies, he actually texts me every day, and he says, "Are you good? How are you?" You know what I mean? This is every morning. Shout out to Will Holloway. Man, one of the best guidance counselors ever in the city of Milwaukee. But every morning he said, "Hey, you good? How you feeling?" Like every day. And so when you said that, it resonated with me, because I wonder how many people are actually doing that, and why is that important for people to do that though?
Well, first of all, thank you, Will, for modeling that kind of behavior. I think there's, and myself included, there's a lot of people, who aren't sure how to voice or express how they're feeling, right? I think it's really critical that people know that their feelings have a safe space to go, whatever that feeling might be, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise.
Right.
And I think it's really important that we build community even virtually, right? And that's what I'm really passionate about, is finding ways to build community. That's what got me into yoga, is certainly the movement and the physical study and the aspect and the internal sort of reflection, but the community that surrounds it. And so it's important for people to check in, because we're all that we have, and we also have to take care of ourselves first. And so it helps sometimes to be able to put yourself first, especially when you're not used to doing that. If you're a parent, if you are busting your butt working as an entrepreneur, if you are a teacher, if you're in a profession of service.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like everyone else usually comes first. And so if you have someone that is kind enough and kind-hearted enough to say, oh wow, I want to make sure Walter's good, you know, or I want to make sure Kristen's good. What to me that signals is, one, they live with compassion, which is one of my core values, but two, they are also prioritizing their own state of mind and state of well-being enough to be able to have energy to give. And, and I think that, you know, it's kind of like lighting a candle. The more we can do that for ourselves, the more lights we can help light all around the world.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you kind of, because, you know, you have people that, like I said, he checks on me. Like, do you have somebody that you check on, or that somebody, you know, who is that one person for you?
Oh, geez.
Or maybe it's multiple people.
I'm very lucky. I have a lot of people in my life that I can do that for. And if, at the risk of sounding a little bit, I guess this might sound a little bit like a juxtaposition, because I'm very blessed. I have a lot of people in my life, right? And I check in with them daily, and I, you know, but my new sort of balance that I'm working to is balancing that act, but really prioritizing myself first and living by that, so that I can be kind of that person wholeheartedly to everyone else, right? So I check in, not to sound selfish, I check in with myself first.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you ever feel like taking care of you or thinking about you first is selfish? I battle with that sometimes. 'Cause I'm like, you know what? Let me do this for so-and-so, because, you know, I'll get some rest on the back end. Yeah. Or I'll go work out later. I'll substitute that and do this for this person. Do you ever kind of feel guilty about it, even though we shouldn't?
Of course. I mean, we're all human, right? Like we're all only human, but I think the more we can practice filling our own cup in very small ways, the less guilty or the less selfish we start to feel, because then you can see it overflow into helping others. You know, I think there's but it's only normal to say, wow, you know, I wake up every morning and I do a meditation before I even get out of bed, right? And so there are some days where my kids they're up, they're walking, and I'm sitting here doing the meditation, and I know that what is best for them is to have me come downstairs in a calm, cool. I've already checked the box for the thing that I've done at the beginning of my day, and so but there's always going to be, you know, those little voices in the back of your head telling you not to make the time, or I can do that later. And I guess what I would just say to people is that you're your most important investment. And I've been years of my life where I was not an investment to myself at all.
When you were in the corporate world.
Yeah, and in the corporate world, or just moving through life without an awareness or a sense of an embodiment of knowing that I was a worthy investment. You know, like I felt like I should be investing in everything else, and so it's okay, right? And it's worth it. You're worth it, right? You're worth it. I'm worth it. She's worth it. Like, people are worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And so changing gears a little bit, you're from Milwaukee.
Yeah, I grew up in Brookfield. I was born in I was born in Bayview. Okay. But I was born and raised in Milwaukee. Okay. Yeah.
What was your upbringing like? How many siblings did you have?
I have a younger sister. Okay. Hi, Laura. I have a younger sister, and that's it. She's 2 years younger than I am. Very different avenues of profession. Okay. She's a pharmacist. She was a sports player. I was a dancer. Got you. But we were raised in a really large extended family. So my mom was one of 10, and my dad is one of 4. Okay. So lots of cousins, lots of people all over the country, and aunts and uncles, and people who we made sure to spend a lot of time with too, growing up. So I was fortunate in that I had a really strong community in the dance studio that I grew up dancing in.
And that's what I was going to ask you. When did you get into dance? Like,
very young. Like, I mean, I think I started, I'm sure my mom will watch this and tell me exactly when, but, you know, I think I started when I was like 2 or 3.
Wow.
And then I kind of moved around, you know, and I got more serious, I guess, about wanting to really focus on dance when I was in late elementary school.
Okay.
So like 5th, 6th grade, through middle school, through high school. And then I danced through college too, and that's when I I incorporated yoga into my life in college.
In college?
Yeah.
Okay. So when now that we're talking about yoga, let's segue back to yoga. I did something called hot yoga.
Oh, good for you. Good.
I tore my meniscus back in like January. I got into an accident, and part of my rehab, I was going through physical therapy, and I was like, man, I need to get this body back like agile. So I went to hot yoga. Are you involved in hot yoga, or what's the difference between hot yoga and yoga?
So
I know it was.
What'd you think about hot yoga?
I was extremely sweaty.
Yeah.
It felt good. My body was not ready to like be malleable like that. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely takes some acclimation. So I actually teach hot yoga at Yoga One Studio. So
Okay.
I teach what's called hot flow, and the heated space is a really beautiful way for you to get more cardiovascular benefits from the practice, right?
Okay.
So there's so many different types of yoga, but one of the many benefits of hot yoga is the cardiovascular benefits
Okay.
that the room offers you. Of course, there's also benefits in terms of like opening up, and much like in other scenarios where spaces are heated, like a sauna or
Yep.
a hot tub or things like that. There are obviously detoxification benefits, but the biggest one that we talk about is the benefit in terms of your cardiovascular health. And so what I love being hot because I'm cold all the time. So I love that aspect of hot yoga. But it is one of many different types of offerings, and it's gaining popularity, I think, just probably because like we're finally adopting it here over the last 5-6 years here in Wisconsin. And it's awesome here because it's cold. It's so cold. So people love it in the wintertime, of course.
Yeah, I had never heard of hot yoga, and I was just looking like for yoga, and I was just like, maybe I should try it out. And actually, I know it was like hot yoga. It was like, come for a free session.
Well, I'd love to have you in class. So
I gotta come to class.
Yes.
I gotta come to class.
Yeah.
And the studio that you are at is called Yoga One.
Yes.
How did you get involved with Yoga One?
So I mentioned Meg at the top, and I will say again, just deepest gratitude. Quite serendipitously, I suppose. So I grew up here. I moved to Madison for college. I went to school at UW-Madison.
Okay.
I spent a little bit of time back here after I graduated working in marketing, and then I moved to Minneapolis for 5.5, almost 6 years. Moved to Chicago for a couple years, and then I ended up back here and was living downtown for a bit, and then unexpectedly kind of, at the time, my fiance, then, my husband, we moved to Grafton.
Okay.
Because of where he was working, where I was working. So I was working downtown and he was working up there. And so all of a sudden I was in the suburbs, right? And there we were. And so, of course, I wanted to get into yoga, and Yoga One, which Meg has owned for 20 years. It's the 20th anniversary this year of the studio.
Congratulations.
Is the best on the North Shore for sure. At the time there were several locations, and so I went to a couple classes, and it felt very divine because soon thereafter there was a teacher training starting, and I'm a curious person, and so I started teacher training after. I had a regular yoga practice, of course, but I started teacher training with her at Yoga One, and that's how I got involved. So that was in 2013.
So it was in 13.
Yeah.
And you
2013 I started going, and then the training started in 2014, and it was about a 9-month process that I went through because I was working.
To become a registered yoga instructor?
Yeah, I was working, in corporate America for my day job, so it was like a every other weekend situation training. It was very expanded. So there's different formats you can do those in. Some people, like I have a friend right now that just, I think yesterday his training started in Bali. He'll just be there straight for a couple of months.
Really?
Yeah. And then there's some programs that are just further spread out because of the time commitment that's involved, because it's 200 hours.
Wow. So let's take us through this. So you were in marketing, you were in the corporate space, and then you transitioned to being an entrepreneur and doing this kind of like full time, right?
Yeah.
What has been the greatest benefit to that for you transitioning from this stable job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To now I'm running my own business, I'm doing these things, I'm reaching out to different people.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you did some things with the Bucks.
Yep.
You're putting on the virtual yoga sessions, you do them in the studio. And I think you made a mention of something called non-studio.
Well, I think there's always, one of the things that I love to do, just to answer that question, is bring the experience of movement and the benefits that it's brought to me in places and spaces that are kind of unexpected, right? So that could be in an office building, that could be at an event, it could be in a corporate environment, it could be in a school, it could be, anywhere like that. So I think yoga is something that, if you can breathe, a lot of people say this, if you can breathe, you're doing yoga, right? So everyone can enjoy the benefits of the practice. It's much more than being bendy and
that's what a lot of people think.
It is what a lot of people think.
That it's just,
it is what a lot of people think.
Twist my body and downward dog, and they think about all these different things.
And truly, there's a lot of humility, I think, that I've gone through, right? In terms of, my yoga practice has to be the most advanced, or I need to be doing all these crazy things. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, how am I staying present with myself? And how are students connecting with themselves? But I want to go back to what you asked before. Thank you for such a thoughtful question. If I can be candid, I wasn't expecting to leave corporate America. I was not, this wasn't like okay, it's time.
Right, like an exit
I was
plan.
thrust into, I've been on a couple other podcasts before, and I called it an ego death. Like I went through a series of them, like this ego death of, I had, worked at some really large companies here. I left, I was working at a startup. It very, very suddenly evaporated, and it was the very first time in my life that I had ever lost anything. Like I had never lost a job. I'd never been fired. I had never gotten even probably below a B in school. Like it was like the very first time in my adult life, right, that I had lost something that happened to coincide with right at the end of the pandemic. And so it gave me a lot of time to pause and reflect, right? And then I made a decision to go back into corporate America after some time off, thinking about it, because I was like, oh, that's just what I'm supposed to do. That's just what I'm supposed to do. Even
it's
though
safe, right?
It's safe. I've got even though I have this yoga practice, it's safe. And it was very, the universe very quickly demonstrated for me that that's not what I was supposed to do. So that came to a halt.
Okay.
And the biggest benefit, since really, I don't like the word force, but I think you understand the intention of what I'm trying to say, right? Since being very clearly guided to say, this is, you are intended to work with organizations that are visionary and big and bold and doing great things, but maybe you're intended to work with them in a different way,
right?
And to also build community.
For sure.
Is, first and foremost, my connection back to my own intuition, right? And my ability to know that I'm doing what's best for me. And then a very, very, very close second, if not tied, is the balance that it's given me with my kids, you know? So I have the blessing and the joy of being able to create a schedule that allows me to be really present with them, and also to do things like bring them with me to experiences such as this, where they can see me doing what I love, see me talking about what I love, and that is just not that wasn't available to me before. And so I feel so fortunate because our time, you know, our time when our kids are here with us is it's so short, even though it feels long. So that's been the greatest gift, as well as just getting to know myself and making time for some of those routines that we were talking about before, where you can really pour into your own cup, right?
Yes.
And so that's when I want to bring people who are at work or, you know, who aren't really thinking about that. They're like, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have time for this. And it's like, well, you know what? You could actually probably just do something while you're typing away at your desk.
There you go.
That's what I would love to be able to do more of, and then also just to continue to build community and invest in the community that I live in. Because I spent a really long time chasing dopamine in other places and spaces, and now I see now more clearly than ever that where you are, to be here now and to be in the place where you have roots and to be able to impact that as richly and deeply as possible is also a great gift, right?
For sure. And that's beautiful that you said that.
To kind of like you do, you know, like that's what you do by having these conversations, right?
Absolutely,
it's like,
absolutely. It's freeing. It's you know, cliche, but it's therapeutic for sure. And just to hear other people.
Totally.
Because I'm sure you do a lot of reflecting, right? And I like to reflect, but I also like to hear, you know, what's going on in the mind of other people. So, you know, when I think about, you know, so even when we think about like the mental health and things like that, like how big is reflection for you? Like, and even trying to get the people that come into your yoga space to enjoy but connect to themselves, right?
Yeah.
But also be able to reflect and not be so harsh on yourself.
Oh my gosh, right? The paradox of the human existence, of course.
Yeah, the bane of our existence, right?
It sure is. You know, I spend a lot of time reflecting. I spend a lot of time going inward. I think that I probably don't spend as much time reflecting as I should. I spend a lot of time sitting with whether or not things are in alignment with my values, right? So like one of the things that I really, really recently did over the last, we'll call it 5 months, I rewrote what my values are. And the values
on the website, the 8 of them?
Yeah.
I probably can rattle them off.
That's great.
You want to bet?
Yeah, I would love to hear them.
So we got integrity.
We
got equity. We got kindness, compassion, play, rest, love, and continue learning.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're the best.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, but you're really actually like prompting me to spend some time reflecting on those, because what I do every day is think about how I'm going to demonstrate them, right? And of course I spend time thinking about, okay, is this in alignment with these or not? But at the close of a day, I think it's a beautiful practice to say, you know, whatever that is, right? Have I lived up to what I believe to be my standard?
It's like an analyzation of your day.
Yes.
Like, what did I do today?
Yes.
And was I in alignment, like you said?
Totally. You know, but that's very, it's important, and I journal about that all the time. And
beautiful.
I spend a lot of, daily I do. But what I think is really important for people to think about is how to reflect with non-attachment to a certain idea or thought, and to just be present in the moment. Sometimes those are the most beautiful reflections, right? Where you're like, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do next. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to get at the grocery store next. And it's hard. It's very challenging, right? Those are some of the things that, for example, a yoga practice allows you to do, is to just stay into the present moment, let someone else guide you. But there are other ways to do it: taking a walk, listening to a podcast.
Yes.
And for me, I've most recently, started a journey with Vedic meditation, which is
I think
a silent practice with a mantra where you just kind of follow the charm, I suppose, of where your mind wanders to. And there's a beauty in the non-attachment to over analyzing anything, right? And so reflection is I don't know, how do you reflect?
No, because I was going to say that because like you said, you always want to make sure that things are in alignment with your values, right? So I think a lot of times when I reflect, I'm thinking like, was that right? Was that wrong? I end up being like overly critical about myself in regards to that. Like I could have did that. And sometimes, maybe it's necessary. I don't know what you think, but sometimes if I've done something or I've said something in a way and it's like, hold on, maybe I should go back to that person. So I think it's helpful in that
oh my gosh,
times,
of
you know what I mean? But sometimes you kind of wallow in it and you kind of like pity yourself and be like, you got to be better, as opposed to, giving yourself grace. Like how hard is it? I find it difficult to give myself grace a lot of times. And, because you want to be upstanding for your family. You want to be upstanding for the people that you're around. I think they call it imposter syndrome. And you kind of run away from that to be like, no, I'm this person. But I always kind of remember like I'm a human being. So like nothing's going to be, perfect. I understand I'm imperfect, but I'm always striving to do the best and trying to be introspective, but also trying to be conscientious during these moments. And always trying to remain calm. So I don't know if that's my yoga.
I think that is your yoga.
But that's just me. I think I'm overly critical sometimes.
Well, I think you're not alone. We all are, right? I think there is I'll call it a pandemic of rumination or like a pandemic of kind of overanalyzing, right? There's so much. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor in any way, but like my personal POV is there's so much information out there, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, whatever, about trying to diagnose or help people like with attachment or trauma or well, here's how to stop this or sometimes that can cause even more spinning, right? Because you're like you're scrolling, all the information you're consuming is reminding you of all the ways that you could have shown up differently, or hey, have you thought about how to be a divine masculine or whatever, all this
it's so many different things. Like what are we doing? They call it infodemic.
Totally. And I'm not convinced that that's helpful, so I think, but you're not alone. And sometimes that just probably helps people, we can all give ourselves a little more grace, and ways we can do that is by pouring back into ourselves. And forgiveness, right? Like forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness for others. And knowing that we get a chance to, if we're lucky enough to go to bed and wake up the next day, we get to try again.
Absolutely.
We get to try again. And that is most of the time my personal perspective is we take things a lot more seriously than anyone that we've actually come into contact with that we think we've offended, right? I don't know if you've read the 4 agreements, right?
I know that to be true.
Take nothing personally because it's really never about you.
Yes.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, just listening to you and just understanding, like your journey through it all, being, diagnosed with Lyme disease, just going through these different things, having friends that passed away due to unfortunate, circumstances and things like that, but being able to kind of like make your way through that and be as graceful as you are now, like it shows a lot of growth in you. And it just shows that, you're on the up and up, and I can see that being something that should be poured into the community is very, very admirable. So even when we met, like you can kind of see it in the conversations. You know what I mean?
I do know.
You kind of feel that. So
thank you so much.
The vibes and the energy, and I'm glad that you continue to do those things too. And do you have anything coming up?
Yes. Thank you first of all, that's the highest compliment you can receive. So I received that, and I'm so appreciative because, I think there's a lot of times, and I would say this to everybody, realizing and recognizing, small moments of growth, exponential moments of growth, that's a huge gift of reflection, to use the word that you used before. And I don't think we each give ourselves enough credit for our own resiliency and grace, and just, you know, everyone has a story and everyone has been through something, and we're all just living in this human experience, right? And so, but thank you for saying that, because it does mean the world to me. There was a long time where I was like, oh, whew, right? And it, you know, like,
no, I know.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
And now I'm like, wow, this life is such a gift.
Right.
So, yeah, so, you know, I am working with Pfizer Forum and the Deer District on a program. There's some select dates. One is coming up on November 21st. So we're, you know, I'm not sure when this will be published, but it's coming up in just a couple days. And it is Yoga at Gather, which is right overlooking Pfizer Forum. It's an event space in the Deer District. Okay. So it is a program that is really just about giving people access to yoga that have maybe never been in a yoga studio, who are already working downtown, and they're like, oh, I want to get in some well-being activity or movement before I go home. And for people who are looking for ways to incorporate mindfulness and well-being and movement, that yoga, you know, all levels of yoga can deliver them without a really big financial investment. So, you know, $5 for a yoga class is pretty much unheard of.
You got that right.
If you're working for select organizations, you know, like Sojourner or any other nonprofit in the area, you can come for free. So that's on Thursday the 21st, and then on deerdistrict.com is the full lineup of dates in December too. So I've got that coming up. You know, of course, my regular teaching schedule at Yoga One Studio, which is so beautiful. And then, you know, a continuous sort of ongoing offering of well-being workshops that pair what I specialize in, and then with mood foods that I'm doing in partnership with
Mood food.
Britta, and those are available ad hoc. We have some select dates in December that are coming up. So that's just a small little snippet of the things that I have going on. I'm working on a book, which is going to be really exciting. And so no shortage of and you know, and then I'm just gearing up for travel baseball season for my son next summer.
You got to show for the kids around,
exactly.
And then, so really quickly, so the one that's on the 21st, that's down by the Deer District.
Yep.
I'm actually on campus or work down at MATC that day.
Oh, cool.
So I may be able to
come
down there and even drag some people with me.
You absolutely should.
Do you have the timing yet?
Yeah, it's at 6:00.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get some people to jump on board.
Oh, please do.
Right now, Walt doesn't have any practices. I think it's on Tuesdays. Well, actually, soccer, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to see you.
Yes. Because I'm trying to get some people to come on with me, and that's actually next week.
Yeah, it's just on Thursday. It's just a couple days. Yeah.
That's next week Thursday. So I'll try to come into. I'm gonna try to be present for that and try to get some other people to jump.
Oh my gosh!
Especially right down there where MATC is, right around the corner.
It's right there.
Yeah, right across the street.
It's literally right there. So and if you know other people at MATC, I mean, they can all just come.
Got you.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I do that.
Okay.
And before I ask my last question, though, I was looking and I seen that you are a huge advocate for victims of domestic violence.
Yeah.
And I seen some stats where it said like 1 in 4 women are actually victims of that.
Yeah.
And then also there was like 1 in 4 people in their lifetime will experience a mental kind of like disorder or neurological disorder. And I love that you are in that space because I have a guy of mine whose son is like special needs.
Yeah.
And he's really into like the neurodivergent and disorders and autism and things like that, which is great. And when I seen those statistics, I'm like, she is tapped into so much stuff.
Yeah.
But briefly before I ask the final question, like, how did you get involved with the Sojourner Truth House and things like that? Sojourner Milwaukee.
Yeah.
For the women.
So a beautiful story. And, you know, so I think it's really interesting how sometimes like life presents you with experiences before you know why the experience is being presented to you. And so I'll make everyone who's watching this that knows me really well is like, oh my gosh.
Right.
I like to say, instead of long story short story long for me.
Yeah.
But long story short, I met a colleague at the company that I mentioned before was like kind of my last foray into full-time corporate work, right?
Okay.
I met her, we became very close. At the dissolution of that experience of that company, she decided to pursue her purpose, right? Her motive, which
beautiful.
is starting an organization that is all about human security and human safety for people, specifically victims of domestic violence. And that was in memory of her sister.
Beautiful.
Who was killed in a domestic violence incident, and so she's located here in Milwaukee, and so what I was there when she decided to start that, and she was my first client as a marketing consultant.
Gotcha.
So I helped her get that off the ground, and we work very closely with Sojourner. So Sojourner has this technology, this solution in place for its victims, which is a solution that helps those who are in need get access to communicating with emergency resources on a very secure line using a wearable device.
Gotcha.
And that's all I'll really say about it.
For sure. It's beautiful though.
Yeah, and so that's how I came to become very closely involved with Sojourner, and very proud to understand more about the impact that has on people's lives, not necessarily realizing that there were so many people who I was in community with that were also survivors of domestic violence, and who weren't really sure how to talk about it until I started talking about it really openly and saying, I'm doing this work for this organization, right? And so that's one sliver of that story. The second kind of element to that I think is really important to talk about is that, domestic violence, yes, 1 in 4 women are survivors of or victims of domestic violence. Some are not so lucky as to walk away, with their lives. Those who have the opportunity to walk away and leave those experiences are some of the bravest people on the face of the planet. But domestic violence is not confined to relationships in which you're living with somebody.
Right.
And so I have personally been impacted by relationships that were abusive in ways that could be considered and are considered, domestic violence in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why now I'm really, 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 invested in ensuring that if anyone needs a safe space or place to go, experts to talk to, people to just listen, that people know that those places exist, right?
Gotcha.
And so I want everyone in Milwaukee to know that Sojourner exists, but there are so many, there's a place, I live in Cedarburg, there's a place up there called Ozaki, that's called Advocacy. Very similar organization. So they're all over. There's so much more to say about that, but that's really, I guess this did turn into short story long.
No, for sure. No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we covered that, because I want people to know that. Yes, you do yoga and things like that, but you're also involved in a lot of deeply entrenched and important work within the community, and working with these organizations, nonprofits, and things like that. And I wanted to make sure we captured that whole picture of you, so everyone knows all that you do. And I think I did forget to mention that you are on the Cedarburg Education Foundation board as well. So
I am.
Board member. Shout out her as well for being
on the piece, thanks.
Because, I love education.
I'm a new addition to the Cedarburg Education Foundation board, and I'm so grateful for it. We just had our gala last weekend, which we exceeded our fundraising goal, and that is another way. I was talking before about just being here now and really investing in the communities in which you live, and there's so much need. There's so much, being closely, and it's all related, being closely involved in the community in which you live, having a purpose in that community, and knowing that you have community, whether that's through the work that you do or through being a benefactor of foundations or other organizations, right? Yeah. That is one of the top 4 ways to ensure that you are staying mentally healthy, right? Like there are 4 elements to mental health, and having community and a safe community is the number 1 reason. And so that's why I'm all about like ensuring that I'm doing everything that I can to make communities of all shapes and sizes feel inclusive and safe and accessible and fun and like, you know, and non-judgmental and just like places where people can bring their complete selves and know that we're all just doing the best that we can. Absolutely. Just like you and I, you know.
Oh, for sure. A space, like you said, a community, a society where we value diversified perspectives and backgrounds, and we can easily, you know, kind of like get along equitably, for sure.
Of course.
That's a big thing. And I like the community part that you said, because I remember on the men's mental health pod, Kyle mentioned, we were talking about self-care a lot and things like that. He said, but don't forget the community care.
Oh my gosh,
and that was huge. That is huge. Shout out Kyle for saying that, because when you just said that, it rang true. So
that's so true. Yeah, that's so true. And thank you for, you know, talking about even just like men's self-care. And you know, it's really common, I think, like for all these conversations about mental health, and yoga and whatever, to be like, you know, women and even domestic violence conversations to be focused on, you know, just exclusively women. And of course there are gender gaps and all these things. But the conversation around like men investing in their own mental well-being, emotional well-being, even just trying different tools is first very brave. Right. And second, so needed. And that's like, you know, that's to the point that you made earlier. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this offering at Pfizer, because it's like, wow, like for a man to be interested, you're like, okay, I'll come down, try yoga, watch, like, you know, the view is where the Bucks play. Right. It's a great way to just like decide to make a choice to invest in yourself in a space that you wouldn't normally think about it, that, you know, and I'll invite everyone to say, like an approachable, this is just a blank canvas space. It's not a yoga studio. It's not, you know, it's not a gym. It's just a place where people can come.
A community space.
Yeah. I want to be part of a community. And so
walk and frequent and come to it.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And men need more of that, you know, that's different than maybe what has existed.
The traditional things, right?
Yeah.
So my last question.
Yeah.
Hope you're prepared. I'm sure you know. What's your motive? And I know you spoke to it probably throughout the conversation, because we talked about so much, but what's your motive for everything that you do within the community, the yoga, the big transition, overcoming, you know, being resilient, just the bravery that you have? Like, what's your motive behind it all?
I want, you know, well, hopefully, like, I can find a way to say this without crying, because she's sitting right here, you know. For sure. But there is something so beautiful about being able to say that you did everything that you could to show your children that you can help people and thrive, you know. And so my motive, you don't have to be in the business of business, right? That you can help people and you can thrive, and that you can overcome some, you know, some challenging things and still be okay. And so that's the underlying motive that I have is that, but really I want to help people that help people, you know, and I want to help build community for people that help people.
Absolutely.
So if you're a person that helps other people, whether you're a teacher, you're an entrepreneur, you are, you know, you're following your dream, you're in a space or a place where you feel really passionate about helping others, I want to help you.
Absolutely.
So that's my motive. And I think when we all help each other, that's how community is built organically. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
And I agree with all that.
Oh,
for sure.
thank you so much.
Really trying to build community with people that want to build up a community. Like that's a huge thing. Like just really trying to find people that are like-minded in a way.
Yeah.
And sincere and genuine as well. Because like you said, it's not about being in business.
Right.
It's about being in the business of helping people.
It's being in the business of helping people. And everyone that I work with now is, you know, whether it's an organization or whether it's a person that I partner with or whether it's someone is, their end game, their motive, right, is to help people in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And so that's the new standard, I think, and that's how we can all rise together.
Yes.
Right?
The collective togetherness, we need it.
Totally.
Absolutely.
We need it so much.
Before we get out of here, I want you to shout out your Instagram, your website, and all
thank
that,
you.
so we know where can we find Kristen.
All right, so my Instagram is Kristen E. Freeman, and that's also my website.
Yep, KristenEFreeman.com.
Is KristenEFreeman.com. So you can find me there. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me, of course, in studio. You can find me at Yoga One Studio all the time. And you can find me, you know, if not there, you'll probably find me on a hike somewhere. So you try and catch me.
So please be sure to check out Kristen's website, her Instagram, and things like that. Also, November 21st.
Yes.
At 6. That's the most recent one, correct?
Yeah, that's the next one that's coming up. And DeerDistrict.com has all the other dates.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we want to give a special shout out to Ash Johnson.
Yes, Ashley Jordan.
Ashley Jordan.
Yeah. So Ashley Jordan, a beautiful author who just released a book. That's where we reconnected after we met for the first time. We met at her original book reading, and then she did a book launch. So Ashley Jordan, thank you. Carrie Starr,
Melissa, Mind, Body, and Spirit.
Yes, Carrie Starr for the introduction, and a dear friend of mine. So thank you both so much for bringing us together for this conversation.
Absolutely.
You have inspired me to reflect today in a way that I haven't reflected in a really long time, and that's like a beautiful gift.
Well,
so
that means a lot.
Thank you so much.
For sure. And we want to shout out Still Life.
Oh yes, Ben.
Ben got a birthday today.
Yes, Ben Cott. Happy birthday. He's rocking the hat.
Absolutely.
So many, you know, I guess we should just shout out. There are so many people in Milwaukee doing really beautiful things that promote mindfulness, well-being, and connection to others. So if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I don't know if there's people out there that, like, you know, are into what I'm into, I promise you that there are.
You're right.
They're there and they're available to you. And I feel so grateful that, you know, that Carrie, for example, brought everyone together at Evolve, and that the more and more people are talking about it more openly in this city, because, you know, we can be about more than just drinking beer and watching sports and cheering for the Packers and the Brewers, right? We can we can come together in places and ways and spaces that are conscious and connected. So
if you are doing anything in that space, we want to hear about it. So
I love that.
We want to hear about it for sure. And one last person I want to shout out is Brendan Carlson for the Investment Scholars hoodie. I appreciate that. He's doing some investing classes for some of the younger students, exposing them to the stock market.
That's so beautiful.
And he gave me a hoodie to wear on the pod. So
amazing.
Shout out Brendan.
Amazing work. Well done.
Yes,
well done.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh.
Truly appreciate it. I'm so happy we were able to connect.
I know.
And I can't wait to see the finishing product.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see more from you too. Thank you
for
again.
Sure.
All right.
So until next time, what's your motive?